when you got a matchbox and you had to light that match, if you went slowly like that, you'd never light the match. Light the match. Come on.
Welcome back to the Sports Illustrated show on Loud Radio. It's time to give the legend himself a call. We're going to be chatting to the 50th box skipper, the man that lifted the World Cup in 2011, most capped Springbok of all time, John Smit. Probably just going to catch up with him, grill him about South African rugby and find out what he's doing with himself.
Let's get him on the line.
He had a little Sonny's Twitter timeline a couple of days ago. He had a little incident.
What you wanted to ask him about?
With the butternut soup.
Whoa!
John, how's it, boy?
Yeah.
How are you, my man? You're live on the Sports Illustrated show, so don't say anything.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. We've got Don and Gareth here in the studio. You well?
I'm very well, baby. Yeah.
Cool, man. We're just checking in on the butternut soup situation, man. Is everything still okay in the Smith household?
I managed to survive that, baby. I was comforted by the world of Twitter. A lot of people giving me some solutions, a lot of people giving me some good ones and some bad ones. I was given a chance to gain my kitchen respect back the next day by watching the roast chicken.
Okay,
and,
so not to...
I didn't leave the kitchen. I was there full time watching it like a hawk. So I'm back on track. I'm still alive. Still married.
You learned from your mistakes. You went back to the drawing board.
That's it. I did try the whole sneaky, take the top off and then watch the pot, but my wife was a little bit sharper than that.
John, it's Currie Cup final weekend. We're not taking any bets on who you're supporting, but what do you think? What's going to happen there?
I think the Currie Cup is an interesting one because it's almost these days. It's almost two competitions in one. You know, I think you get to see quite a lot of exciting young talent coming through, and a lot of the guys put their hands up and they get their teams to the end. And then the Springboks enter and it sort of ups the level from an intensity point of view. But and this one has been in no different to any of those. I think, look, it's difficult to take my opinion without a pinch of salt because I'm obviously spent my entire career at the Sharks. So, but the money will always point towards the Sharks. If you look at the kind of squad they've got, the kind of year they've had, the players they've got, I mean, in reality, the Sharks should be hitting most finals, both in Super Rugby and Currie Cup, with the amount of money they spend on their squad and the kind of players they've got. So they're not as ravaged by injuries as Western Province are, and which is why I think you've almost got to tip your hat to a guy like Alex Garcia. He's done an unbelievable job of taking Province through to a final with the amount of injuries and the kind of year that he's had. So it just shows the kind of coaching ability that he has. So because he's come this far and he's brought this group this far and they've obviously had a lot of belief, I think it'll make it a game on Saturday. But the money, unfortunately, well, if you, from a Province point of view, but fortunately for the Sharks, is got to be on the sort of very strong Sharks squad at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, John, Don here, as a staunch Western Province fan, I'm not overly confident. But I think many of us had just been put through more pain and suffering by Province scoring that last-minute try on the weekend. But there is a lot of talent floating around, and you look at both of these squads. Essentially, they've ended up with a lot of players that got them to this stage in the tournament, as you said, who are actually floating around in the under-21 setups. Just some thoughts on that, because there's a lot of conversation going on in this country about centrally contracting players, etc. Is it to our disadvantage as a country that we've got these guys that could be playing, say, B Division Currie Cup for the Pumas, even though they're tied to the Sharks or Province or the Lions, instead of playing in the under-21 leagues?
Look, what we have to positively know from the outset is that we are blessed with an amazing amount of talent. And you look at our schoolboy rugby, and that's why we have such talented players coming to such a young age. I think another thing we need to look at it from the other perspective is that a lot of these young guys are coming through because the guys in their mid-20s to 30s are struggling to keep up with the amount of rugby and the type of rugby that's being played. So every so often, every 3 or 4 years, the Super 12 becomes a Super 14, becomes a Super 15, with us pushing for it to be a Super 16 before the first Super 15 is even finished. So this is why we're seeing a lot more of the young talent coming through the young age, because we sort of, I suppose, for want of a better version, we're running out of players, so to speak, and it's very difficult to manage players under the current system that we have, because every coach that coaches at every province is got his job on the line. So to centrally contract players is obviously the way forward. In terms of if we want to preserve our top 30, 40, 50 players, but it is a complicated situation because each one of the unions are an individual entity that need to try and make money and need to try and function like a business. So it's very difficult to go to Alistair Coetzee or John Plumtree, who are now the two coaches in the finals, and say, yeah, geez, the Boks have had a tough year. They've played a lot of rugby. How about we leave them out for the last 3 weeks of the Currie Cup? And how many coaches are going to say, yeah, sure, 100%? It's very difficult because their jobs individually on the line. So it's not a perfect situation at the moment, but whether essentially contracting will help, in my opinion, yes. But there's always those issues of the fact that, we need to, I think, support a more of a rotational type system throughout the Super 15 so that these issues don't happen. But it's good to see that when the big boys do break down, that these youngsters take their chances. And tell you what, you're seeing 20-year-olds playing like 30-year-olds. I mean, they just take the initiative. They're big, they're strong. These academies that we've got around the country are obviously doing a good job because these players are well refined.
John, just in terms of that, touching on that again, with you being there at Saracens now, I know that you're probably being managed very well. But how have you found in terms of, I understand that they've got a system where a couple of guys go into the Storm squad and then come out and play a couple of games in the first team and they go out. It's an actual plan that they put in place. And I mean, are those players more resilient to injury? And
I must say, I've learned a hell of a lot here, to be honest, and it's almost frustrating. I wish I'd come and seen an environment like this, a couple of years back, and been able to sort of try and bring some of it back to the teams that I played in back home. I mean, they do have an unbelievable amount of faith in their entire squad. And yes, we've got a Storm team, which is in effect a B team. But we've got quite a strong squad. And because it's such a long tournament, we've got what they call a rotational system. So you basically get called into a one-on-one every 3 or 4 weeks. And you get told as to whether you're in rotation, when you're going to be playing Premiership, when you're going to be playing Heineken Cup, when you're going to be playing Storm. And both teams function with the same amount of pride, no matter whether it's B team or Storm Rugby versus Heineken Cup versus Premiership. So it means that a 34-year-old hooker like myself can still play and contribute, knowing full well that I don't have to play 80 minutes every single weekend until something breaks. So I mean, for me, it's been a perfect scenario because it's allowed me to play an extra year or two. So, I mean, I don't think, when I was deciding to go to Saracens, staying in South Africa, I don't think would have been a very clever option. I don't think I would have survived in that Super 15, to be brutally honest.
Sure. I mean, it just strikes me that everyone that I speak to here says, well, you can't leave them out. You pay them so much and they're so important to your team. And I said, well, how much do the guys play once they're spending 3, 4, 6 months out on the sideline with serious injury? It just looks like the management actually ends up helping the guys, helping your own team by looking after them.
Well, that's the thing. What our coaches here sort of want is they want to be able to say that in a Premiership they've used 30 to 40 players in a squad, which is a hell of a lot for one tournament. But they also don't want to be watching guys on the sideline with an ACL for 9 months. So you're right, mate. What you lose on the one side by rotating, you gain on the other side. I think we need to open up our minds, and I'm talking about South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. If we look at the kind of injuries that I suppose Australia and South Africa especially have suffered, and you need to, one thing is by resting your top players, or in a sense rotating them and giving the up and coming guy an opportunity and entrusting him, you're basically creating a better player that's coming up behind that superstar. And the more faith you're showing those players, and the more that the superstars realize that there are other guys that can take the positions, it can only benefit players individually and teams as a whole, and certainly countries who want to compete at the highest level. So, I think it's a win-win situation, but it is a very difficult situation to manage when your job is on the line and you get 8, 9 Springboks back and there's only 3 weeks to go in a Currie Cup, and it's very difficult to manage that if you haven't done it in the Super 15 already.
Sure.
John, just on a personal note from your perspective, I mean, you must be 300 plus first-class games by now. Any thoughts about what you're going to do when you hang up your boots? I mean, I know you've been an in-studio pundit on Sky for rugby in the last few weeks or months.
Yes. Yeah, you saying, so when am I going to enter the real world, basically?
Don't do it, mate. It's not worth it.
Look, I'm contracted until June next year here, so I've got a good 8 months left on my contract here, and I must say, tomorrow marks the arrival a year ago. So I've been here a year tomorrow, and it has been an unbelievably enjoyable stint. It's been an unbelievably enjoyable year. So it almost feels like June next year is too soon to be heading back just yet. The experience here in the UK has been amazing for the four of us as a family. It's been weird. I had to adapt to being at home all the time, and now it just feels weird to come home. Because I know, if eventually when I do come home, it'll be chaos and I'll be all over the place and that kind of thing. So for now, I'm trying to avoid the real world for a little bit longer and try and stay here for another year or so. Inevitably, I'll end up in Durban in my house, and I look forward to that. But for now, life is unbelievably peaceful. I do have a huge amount of time at home. We've seen parts of Europe that we would never have seen from back home, and it's been a great experience. So when eventually the rugby boots have to come off, there's a few things that I've got back home that I'll probably get involved with that other people have been helping me with up until now. So I suppose the answer is I'm trying to avoid the real world for as long as possible.
And now, I suppose in closing, it would be remiss of us not to talk about the Boks. I mean, you're the most capped Springbok of all time, the most capped Test rugby captain, and you were the 50th Boks skipper. Your thoughts in terms of the way forward for Heineken Meyer and having to rebuild a squad and what lies ahead?
51st, actually. I think Skinner was the 50th Springbok captain.
Okay. Wikipedia's wrong.
I think, to be fair, I think it's been obviously every year we want Springboks to win, and we want the Tri Nations, we want to be unbeaten. I think Heineken has dealt with his first season, and he's still in it, obviously, pretty well considering the amount of challenges he's had. It doesn't help the fact that he lost a lot of senior players. He lost in terms of captaincy. There wasn't a guy underneath that could help him immediately. So he made a big decision. He was killed with injuries in terms of how to select his team and getting the right balance right. And throughout all these challenges, I still think he made steady progress throughout the test matches that he played. There were some games, obviously, that were hard to watch, but I think the Springboks in general, got better and better throughout the Tri Nations. In the last game, sadly, didn't go well. Although we definitely won the first 40 minutes against the best team in the world, and possibly an All Black team that'll go down as one of the best in All Black history. So we mustn't get too ahead of ourselves, and also I mustn't be too defeatist at the same time by saying, well, we can't get there. We are on our way there. I think we've got the players to get there, and I think Heineken, once he has had time to get through this first season, get his systems in place, understand the players that he's got and where they come from and their background, and to be able to choose from a full field of injury-free players, or at least get some of them back. I think we're just going to get stronger and stronger. It's going to be very difficult. I don't know Heineken personally, but he seems a very methodical man, and he seems to have built a dynasty at the Bulls through clear planning and preparation. And with the amount of talent that we've got, I can't see us continuing to build. We'll have a 3-game opportunity again at the end of October after this Currie Cup, and I'll be hopefully watching all of those games, and I'm pretty sure we'll go well. We're playing probably 2 decent teams in England and Ireland, and the Scottish team shouldn't be too much of a threat. But it's still going to be a learning experience for these youngsters now who've come on an interview tour playing in different conditions, whereas Springboks haven't had to worry about those kind of things because of the experience that they've had up until now. So I suppose in closing, I think it's just hard, but it's almost a plea for patience for people to let this team grow into a Springbok team that can start throwing the likes of Gary Crotch and Richie McCaw around, because they are in an unbelievably good space now. But Dan and Richie can't last forever. There are a lot of players in very crucial positions in the All Blacks that are that are at the end of their career as well. So they are in a purple patch, and I'm sure it'll last another year or so. But the Springboks it's going to get better and better.
I just wanted to, Heineke is the first coach in like 8 years to come from a union. When Jake took over, he didn't come from a union, and neither did Peter de Villiers.
Yes.
But if you can sort of, according to me, it's almost as if Heineke now is, at the start of his tenure. Well, not exactly the start. He's in a couple of months, but. He's almost now where Jake was in 06, almost with people criticising his game plan, criticising his team selections.
Yes.
So he's up against it right from the start. You would have expected it.
Sure.
No one ever said being the Bok coach was easy. But do you feel for the guy, or did he bring this all on himself?
No, look, I tell you what. The thing about at that level is you have to have a huge amount of perspective. And I have seen one or two coaches come and go, and some have done well and some who haven't done well. I think the important thing to know is if we'd taken a poll the day Heineke Meyer was announced, we probably would have had a 90% strike rate with smiley faces all across the country. And then we probably wouldn't have hit 90 a couple of weeks ago or at the moment. And I suppose in general the main criticism is that he is, making the Springboks play a certain way. That's what his criticism is. That's where his criticism is coming, and that's how he's achieved success, and that's what he'll do well, and he'll adapt to that. But you're always going to be criticised if you're not winning. If Heineke was making them play wide off every single ball and pop pass and offload out of everything and play champagne rugby, and was losing, believe me, that would be the reason why they didn't like him.
Yeah.
So the reality is, it's irrelevant what kind of rugby the Springboks play. The only relevant thing in my time with the Springboks from the year 2000 onwards is no one cares. If you're a South African supporter, no one cares what kind of rugby you're playing until you're losing.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Jake White once said a very interesting thing to me in that 2006 year. He said, if you know that you're inevitably going to get fired as a Springboks coach, which happens pretty much to most of them, you must, one day, when they fired you must say that you've at least done it and tried to do it your way, the way that you believed in, the way that got you into that position. And Heineke is doing that. Heineke's got a certain way of coaching, and he's implementing that, and we haven't even seen the beginnings of where he's going because it's such early doors. But if Heineke then had to listen to everyone's influence and change what got him to becoming the Springbok coach, he'll one day look back and say, "Sheesh, if only I just stuck to my gun."
Yeah.
And that's what we've got to give Heineke the opportunity.
Perfect. John, thanks so much. Enjoy the Currie Cup final on Saturday, and then enjoy going to the test matches as well. It must be fun from your perspective to go and sit and watch a Bok match in a supporter's jersey.
Yeah. Mate, I think it's harder to spectate than it is to play, to be honest.
No, we feel, John.
All right, boys. Have a good day.
Cheers, awesome. Thanks so much for joining us on the Sports Illustrated show, John. We'll chat to you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.